the snack. And the other soldiers found more, and they did the same thing. But soon after, they started vomiting and got terrible diarrhea. They even acted drunk, barely able to stand. You see, the bees in that area collected nectar from poisonous flowers, which transferred into the honey. And the enemy knew this. So he collected the honey before leaving it out to make the soldiers sick. And once they were weak, the army attacked, killing hundreds of confused men and winning the battle, all thanks to the honey. He climbed up a tall stone pillar and sat down to pray. But crowds of people started showing up for religious advice, distracting him from praying. So he climbed up an even taller pillar and had his food and water pulled up through ropes. For decades, he endured rainstorms and intense heat, and legend says that when his mother died, he even had her body moved there so he could say goodbye. After about 40 years, he finally died, bent forward in prayer, and he was buried by the same crowds he avoided in life. You would pause the movie, hit print on the remote, and inside the TV, the paused image is copied from the screen into the printer's memory. After converting the signal into color data, the printer feeds in a blank sheet, then runs heated color panels over it in precise patterns, matching the paused frame exactly. Once the colors are in place, the sheet is laminated, and the finished photo slides out of the TV as you resume your movie. You would pause the movie. The ants climbed onto the plank, which was then loaded into a boat and shipped to a different country, where they started their own colony. And this happened The ants climbed onto the plank, which was then loaded into a boat and shipped to a different country, where they started their own colony. And this happened countless times, until these ants were spread all over the world. But even after a century of living thousands of miles apart, their chemical smells are still super similar. And if you put together two of these ants from two different continents, they'll still act like they're from the same colony. Mix 3 cups of sugar with 1 cup of water, then heat it up while stirring. Once it's clear, pour the hot syrup into a glass jar. Next, cut a clean piece of string, about 2/3 the length of the jar, and tie it to a stick. Dip the string in the syrup, then let it dry hard, before balancing the stick on top of the jar, so the string hangs inside without touching the sides. As the liquid cools, it will release sugar particles, which will form crystals along the string. And after a week, you'll have a hard chunk of rock candy. As the trunk of the tree died, its branches collapsed to the ground. But deep inside the soil, the roots stayed alive. A new trunk pushed up through the earth, and the tree was reborn, only to die and regrow, century after century. When researchers finally found it and sampled the preserved roots, tests showed they were over 9,000 years old, meaning the tree had been alive since the end of the last ice age. When a shark attacks someone, it immediately makes the news. Because of this, you might think they're really deadly, but sharks only kill about 10 people each year. Now, snakes are much deadlier, killing about 10,000 times that amount. And humans are even worse, murdering about 400,000 other humans each year. But the true champion of death is the tiny mosquito. Its bites spread diseases that cause over 700,000 deaths every year, making it the deadliest animal in the world by far. If you could scale an onion to over 600 feet wide, you would need chainsaws to slice off the top. Then flip it stem side down with huge cranes and cut it into 16 sections, pulling the layers outward with thick cables until it fully blooms. Next, use a helicopter to cover it with 800 tons of flour, before using fire trucks to spray on eggs and milk, and topping it with even more flour. Finally, Simply fill a crater with boiling oil and lower the onion inside. When you take it back out, you'll have a blooming onion the size of the Colosseum, enough to feed almost 13 million people. The sacks would be inserted inside your wrists, with small openings right before your palms. Your bones would also be thickened with steel rods, and your joints reinforced with braces. Every time you ate, the sacks would spin the protein in your food, hardening it to liquid silk. And when you flicked your wrist, your muscles would flex, squeezing the sack to shoot the silk out. But even though it might stick to a building, it would probably just snap under your weight. The sacks would be inserted inside your wrists, with small openings right before your palms. Your bones would